Hello and welcome to Comprehension Points Video Snark. If you came here because you thought that this was an audiobook, please stick around and maybe learn some reading and listening comprehension skills. I read books and discuss what went wrong and how they can possibly be fixed. I'm continuing my read-through of Betrothed by Kiera Cass. Not the first video, go check out the others, links are posted below. Chapter 25. They sit around and wait anxiously as Reed reads through the papers Valentina smuggles out. He eventually asks if Valentina had read them, and when Hollis says no, he says good. Because in the papers, he goes to detail about paying to have Valentina's family killed. Yikes. Reed goes on to say that some of the papers are insignificant, but that a lot of them go into details on the other assassinations, the name of the victims, and even the names of a couple of the assassins. Lovely. Also worth pausing to say, how forking stupid can you possibly be? Why the frick-frack paddywhack do you have records of all of your evil dealings? And then to make matters worse, Ian was right that the wedding seems rushed. There's literally evidence that Quentin has paid a random peasant girl for her baby who was conceived about a month from the present. Again, how can this guy be so freaking dumb? Written there in his own handwriting is over how he plotted to destroy his extended family because they were more fruitful than he was. When Valentina proved not to be suitable, he skipped over her for Philippa, who is beyond okay to accept her marriage to Hadrian under the condition that after an acceptable mourning period has passed, she can marry whomever she likes. Having explained all of that to them, Ian asks what their next step is. How do they convince people that all of this is true? Reed goes and gets his sword. It seems as though literally the only thing to convince him to go to war were those letters, which I will admit were pretty bad. But if his immediate next course of action was war, why did he need the letters in the first place? Seems like he was only looking for an excuse. They all wonder who would be on the throne after they remove Quentin. Ian asks about Scarlet, but she says no, that she's never wanted it. And despite it being established that Ian doesn't want it, they all throw their support behind him. Reed tells Ian to return home and ready the troops. Before he goes, he says that he needs to get Valentina out. He looks to Hollis and asks for her help, which she is beyond ready to do anything to help her friend. Chapter 26. It takes them a while to find a maid to deliver a message to Valentina since they're all afraid of her. It makes me wonder why anybody would even work in the palace at all. Yeah, work is work, but I'd rather toil in a field until I die at age 30 than to risk my life simply because the king is mad with power. Valentina shows up in their rooms in her dressing gown. They thank her for the work she did to get them the papers and briefly explain about Ian. Valentina throws her support behind him too. Hollis can't help but think that Valentina and Ian are about to trade places and can't help but note how poetic it is. It's honestly a nice scene. Hollis and Valentina exchange clothes with the guise of Ian taking his cousin back home to the middle of the night. From there, Valentina will use the papers provided to get across the Corroa Royal hideout in the Bright Estate under the care of the old servants. They were left there at the end of the first book until Hollis could decide what to do about her ancestral home. Valentina knows that if Quentin finds out about this, he'll kill her, but she puts on Hollis's clothes anyway, determined to get out, no matter the risk. They begin their goodbyes. Hollis notes that Ian is looking at the ground and decides that it's a good thing. She feels terrible enough about having to send him off like that, not knowing if or when she'll ever see him again. Hollis promises to get back to the Bright Estate as soon as she can. Ian then says individual goodbyes to his parents and whispers something into his mother's ear. He makes a joke with Scarlet about now's her last chance to be a queen, but she continues to refuse. As he comes face to face with Hollis, he begs her to remain safe. He kisses her on the forehead before leaving with Valentina. Chapter 27. Nobody sleeps at all that night. Reed moves around, not willing to put anything to paper and spread the word of their uprising among certain people. The women, meanwhile, do the same thing with the wives and ladies of the court. As night falls, Hollis expresses her fear over Ian being murdered and left on the side of the road like garbage. Scarlet implores her to have a little faith in Ian and goes on to say that Ian will come back for Hollis, if you catch my drift. Hollis still isn't sure that Ian returns her feelings and continues to deny all of this to Scarlet. Eventually, Scarlet asks if Hollis would have rejected him if he'd asked. After a bit of hemming and hawing, Hollis says that she wouldn't have rejected him. Again, Scarlet has to remind Hollis that she should find her happiness now that Silas is dead. But then Hollis comes up with another excuse. Once Ian takes the throne, he'd have to make a good political alliance via marriage. Scarlet is quick to point out that Hollis comes from a good line despite it being from another country. Hollis then asks why Scarlet is so insistent upon the Ian-Hollis thing happening. Scarlet says that it's obvious and everybody knows how the two of them feel for one another, but even after all of that, Hollis still isn't convinced. She returns to watching for signs of Ian's return. Chapter 28. Hollis keeps another vigil all night. Right as the sun is starting to poke over the eastern horizon, a massive army appears led by Ian. The rest of the family hurries to alert their allies, and soon they themselves have a tiny army of supporters behind them. By the time that the group gets out to the front gates, Ian's army has reached there as well. The guards announce that this is treason, but Ian pulls a reverse Uno and says that it's Quentin who has committed treason. After announcing exactly what Quentin has done, he gives them the chance to lay down their weapons and join the correct side of history. To everybody's surprise, including my own, they all switch to support Ian. I guess Quentin's actions were less secret than he had hoped. I legit don't know why anybody hasn't risen up against him until now. Like, even his guards are like, F that guy. His guards. How badly do you have to mess up in order to have literally no support? Eaton then says that he's going to go in alone to demand Quentin's surrender. If that doesn't happen, he tells them that they will have to fight. Reed then expresses how proud he is, but Eaton admits that he didn't do much. As has been abundantly clear in this, Quentin is so terrible that people don't even need an excuse to unseat him. Eaton asks that Reed and Hollis go in with him, and they agree to this. Inside, those who had somehow remained quickly flee at the sight of the trio. They make it up to Quentin's room without problems or interruptions. In his room, Philippa is randomly there. That in no way, shape, or form seems remotely suspicious. Nope. Anyway, Eaton lays out Quentin's crimes and demands that Quentin surrender his crown. However, Philippa is randomly not having any of it, despite her having literally no power in this situation here. And then Quentin says that Hadron died that morning. Thanks for listening to my book Snark on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because I sometimes drop random videos on other days too. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to help me out. The first is watching this video as well as all my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all of your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book Snarks, always free and updated every morning. And if you've already read all of my main Snarks, then you can find even more Snark on my Patreon. You can access it for $1 a month. Members also get early access to my main Tumblr Snark. Special thanks to Dawn, Phoebe, and Nikki for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, you either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my Snarks so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too. For just $6 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your writing is. But not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well, just 1 cent per word. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of erotic short stories and 2 full-length novels. I also frequently run flash sales on my stories, and if you aren't following me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you can know when I might be offering things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you next week, guys!